Yo, what's good, guys? Confess CS back again, yet with another banger here. So yeah, if you didn't know yet, you can still enter in this week's giveaway, which is a Dragon Lore sticker, which is around, I don't know, 15 euros right now. It kind of shot up in price due to the sticker slab update. Yeah, you just have to comment this video, and you're in for the drawing. Good luck. So, before we start, I want to give you a little disclaimer here. And let me make one thing very clear. I am not a financial advisor. Cases and the entire CS market are highly speculative. Never put money in you that you can't afford to lose, as with any speculative markets. And before you even think about investing in CS cases, make sure you understand the tax situation in the country you live in. In Germany, for example, I did my research and I also traded cases already. Profits from cases are treated similarly to crypto under what's called a privates Veräußerungsgeschäft, which basically translate into a private sales transaction. So that means if you hold your cases for at least 1 year, your profits can be tax free because the speculative period has ended. Make sure to check your own local regulations because this can vary by country. So now, why am I making this video? Well, a lot of new players have entered the market and a lot of new investors have entered the market. But some people still don't really understand the entire concept around case investing. So this is going to be very beginner friendly and how I basically made up my mind on which cases I should invest in. And also, the reason I'm making this video is kind of personal. I'm going to give you a real life story here. So when I first moved out with my now fiance, money was tight. I basically came out of an apprenticeship. I just bought a car and we suddenly had a lot of moving costs. But it was worth it, of course. And I thought, you know what? I've been holding onto some cases for a while. What if I just sell them? And that's exactly what I did. I sold all the cases I had been investing in and made around 5 to 7,000 euros from basically, I don't know, 300, 400. I don't know the exact numbers yet right now, but something around that, which basically helped me finance the entire move. So, yeah, over the years, cases have shown insane returns, sometimes over 100% per year, which is something traditional investments like stocks rarely achieve. But of course, the risks are higher too. So, the basics of how case drops work. Let's start with the basics here, of course. Right now, we have 4 active cases and the Genesis terminal drop. That makes it 4 cases and 1 case-esque item. That's about 40% of all weekly drops are terminals, and the other 60% is split evenly between the 4 active cases. So they all have around 15% each. Beyond that, there's the biggest part about this entire market basically. There are about 30 cases in the so called rare drop pool. And those 30 cases together only make up for 1% of all case drops. Every player or every account, to put it more directly, can get only 1 drop per week. That's it. And yeah, why does the number of players not really change the big picture and why I'm not very afraid of the numbers? Well, for one, a lot of people playing the game, like more people playing the game, also means more people opening cases. So the demand is higher and supply is lower or going to be decreased. People often think that the number of drops completely controls supply, but the truth is, I think it barely matters. Let me explain the math here and why I think this. So, if we use the average player base of around 2 million players, but it's right now 1 million, so I put it like if everybody has 2 accounts, I put it like 1 million, uh, like twice as high. So each rare case in the 1% drop pool only gets like 2,666 cases per month. That's it. And even if we go to the extreme, let's say 40 million players, 40 million accounts get their weekly drop every month. Even then, each of the rare cases would only get around 53,000 new cases per month. All of the rare ones, as I said. And that's still lower than the number of most cases that are opened every month. So even in the most unrealistic, inflated scenario, supply most of the time still loses to demand. So I've thought about like some analogies I want to put here, and I thought about it like penny stocks and meme coins. Let me explain. So, yeah, as I said, I'm not a financial advisor and I don't know if this makes sense, but you can tell me in the comments. I see, or I would say that low priced rare cases are basically penny stocks for me. They are cheap, the downside is limited, and they can explode in value over time once they mature in the rare drop pool. Active dropping cases, on the other hand, are basically meme coins. There's a huge amount of supply entering the market constantly. They can be risky, but if you pick the right one and if it gets discontinued, your gains can be massive. A perfect example is the fracture case. When it entered the rare drop pool, it doubled in price. A 100% increase literally overnight. So this is basically like the meme play, I would say. So this subjective part is also very important, and here's how I kind of think about it. So how do people actually think about the case itself? So there's also a subjective part in it, and it comes down to how much people like the skins inside. One way to track this is by looking at the unboxing ROIs of different cases. A good example is the original CSGO weapon case 1. Most of the value in that case actually sits in the purples. That's kind of weird if we think about it. But that's not because the purples are amazing. It's because they are used in trade-ups for the legendary case hardened AK-47, the most legendary skin in the game basically. A blue gem for an AK from that AK can sell for hundreds of thousands of euros, and a normal case hardened is like around 250. And websites like CSROI don't include blue gem potential in the EV calculations. So the pink skin values would actually be higher if they did. So again, popularity, desirability, and the trade up ecosystem also play into it. And then we have a separate part about the knife trade up. Yeah, how it basically affects the case openings. So yeah, generally speaking, cost rare cases tend to have the highest long-term potential. They are cheap to get into, and historically they've performed extremely well. But there are also rare cases that have been in the rare drop pool for a long time or are completely discontinued. These cases tend to be more stable, more predictable, and often hold their value even during market downturns. However, and this is important, they still follow the overall market sentiment. And here we come to the trade up part. This, of course, brings the risks with it. So the risk is Valve here. So basically, the one that creates the cases. Any update can change the entire market, even things that technically have nothing to do with certain cases. For example, the weapon case 1 used to sit around $120 on the Steam market before the update. Then Valve released the knife trade up update. The entire market sentiment changed, and 5 coverts basically mean one knife from that collection, so it doesn't really affect the cases, in my opinion, especially if the value sits in the AKK SAR mostly. The update had nothing to do with his case, but the price still crashed down to around $70. Now it's slowly recovering, hovering around $80 to $90. So this example shows how unpredictable the CS market can be. Valve can flip things upside down basically overnight. And now, what do I think? How does the trade-up mechanic has a place into this case investment market? So yeah, this update didn't just shock the market; it also introduced a completely new mechanic for getting your dream skin, that being a knife or a glove. So instead of opening cases, player can now aim directly for the exact gloves or knives they want to by trading up 5 coverts. So naturally, a lot of people started putting their money into this mechanic rather than into case openings. So the money that could have gone into cases is basically now split. Part of it is still going into unboxings, but another part flows into trade ups. However, these trade ups have already become extremely expensive. You need multiple high end coverts, and the cost adds up very quickly. So my personal opinion is once the hype fades and players realize how costly these trade ups really are, and I've heard like some friends of mine did them, and they had like a bad feeling in their stomach when they did them. So this cannot be like, um, yeah, sustainable. Like most people, if they hit a bad skin, they most likely won't do another trade up. I think at least. But yeah, as I said, it's also my kind of speculation here. But I think that a large portion of those people will eventually pivot back to cases, which means in the long run, the case play might still be good. Now, on top of all of that, a lot of has changed since the old days of CSGO, and one of the biggest factors right now is regulation. The European Union, which is by far the largest market for CS2, has been pushing heavily toward restricting or even banning loot boxes. And China is also a very big market. I don't know if it's bigger than the EU, but yeah, I need some data for that, honestly, but it's hard to get. Um, yeah, they might also change stuff, and maybe that basically makes this entire thing worthless. But as I said, it's always a risky play. So countries like Belgium and the Netherlands have already started treating loot boxes as gambling, and more EU members are starting to move into that direction. In the EU, if the EU ever decides to enforce a unified law against loot boxes, it could completely change the way cases work, how they're sold, and how the entire economy functions. This is another layer of risk that simply didn't exist on this scale a few years ago. It was like talked about, but right now it's more present than ever. And it's something every investor in CS items needs to be aware of. So historically, as I said, cases have had some of the strongest returns in the entire gaming economy. They also come with high risks, lower liquidity, especially with the 8-day trade hold now, and usually higher buying barriers. For example, on most third party markets, you have to buy in bulk, typically like 50 or 100 cases at a time. People who go for low priced cases often buy in the thousands. And to be fully transparent here, my own portfolio is currently around 6,000 cases. So it can be a lot of work. So, what are my final thoughts here? To sum it up, case investing can be incredibly profitable, but it's also highly speculative. There is logic behind understanding drop system supply demand and skin popularity and market patterns, of course. But at the end of the day, Valve can change the rules whenever they want, and governments can introduce regulations that impact the entire system. So, invest responsibly, do your research, and most importantly, only put in what you can afford to lose. If it goes to zero, don't tell me, like, oh, why did you tell me to invest into cases? So yeah, here we come to the interesting part, the tier list. Yeah, so with my experience, basically, I'm giving you my opinion, obviously. Um, just for like, if you're interested, all of the cases that have basically the highest ROIs, so the danger zone, the glove case, sorry, the Danger Zone, the Prisma 2 case, the Clutch case, the Snakebite case, the Fracture case, and the CS20 case and the Prisma case. I have all of them. So those are my biggest the biggest part of my portfolio, I would call it. So yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm a guru, but yeah, as I explained, those were my reasonings behind it, why I did it, why I bought those cases. And I was kind of lucky with the fracture case. I kind of thought, okay, probably this one is going to be discontinued soon. And I, before they got discontinued, put like 300 euros in. So this basically doubled it. But yeah, so the tier list I created has, yeah, a little bit. I'm going to explain something around it. So we have the too expensive kind of tier. So I think that the esports like these cases are basically completely inflated because not a lot of people own them. They are completely discontinued and they are basically controlling the price. They have very low supply, but they are not really like there's not really demand for them, so they can easily be manipulated. I think so. This might be a good thing because like if someone decides, okay, I'm going to buy every esports case, which is not very unrealistic, the price might shoot up. So I don't know, but it's for me too expensive. Oh, this one I have to put one up. So all of these cases are for me at this point of buying too expensive. So glove case, Hydra case, Bravo case, all the weapon cases, um, the Huntsman case, and the Winter Offensive case. Now we have the bad tier, which, well, I put them into bad tier. There's basically a pretty easy explanation behind it. So the Falchion knife is not very popular. The CS2, CS20 case knife is not very popular. The Bowie knife is not very popular, and the others, and the Shadow daggers, of course. So I don't know why you should invest in those. They're not really demanded, I think, like not really demandful. And of course, like as I said, if you want to go for it, okay, go for it. I think that right now, yeah, maybe it might be a good play. The Revolution case, the Recall case, they are very cheap right now. The Kilowatt case, yeah, if you hit the right one, it's probably going to pay off. But for me, it's a little bit too speculative right now when you can get cheaper discontinued skins cases. So yeah, we have the okay or stable tier. Those are previous operation cases. This one still gets dropped, although it was a operation case. You could still get it as a drop in game. But the Riptide, the Broken Fang, and the Shadowed Web case, they are completely discontinued. So I don't think we're going down from the price we're seeing here. As of course, if nothing insanely stupid happens, which would burn my entire portfolio basically. But as I said, I do know the risks, and you should know them too. The Solitaire basically has one interesting thing, I think. So there's a Dreams and Nightmares case in it. Why? Because I think that this case has insane potential. Like if you, for example, if I look at all the other cases that have butterfly knives in them, they're way, way, way more expensive. So the Dreams and Nightmare case is still comparatively cheap. So although it is an active drop, it's the only one I put into solid. Of course, if it goes into rare drop, it's probably Giga tier. So yeah, those are the OG knife collections cases. They will always have demand for the Karambit Blue Gem, of course. It's just a dream of many people. So it's going to be a solid tier. The very solid tier is the cases that have insane unboxing ROIs, unboxing numbers, sorry. For example, the Chroma cases, the Spectrum cases, they are very, very demandful. Like people open them en masse, and there's not a lot of mass in it. But the reason I don't put them into Giga tier or almost perfect is because they are already quite expensive, but they have insane potential, as I said, I believe. So yeah, the danger zone sits in here. I could also put it alongside the Horizon case into almost perfect here because they are not too expensive to get at the moment. Yeah, I own some danger zone cases, as I said, but I'm going to put them into very solid, which is not bad, I think, for them. So now we have the almost perfect here, and this is the Prisma collection. So they have, I go. So it has quite popular covert skins and the knives. So the only knife that is very ass is the Navaja knife. And the other knives are pretty demanded. And they have the Doppler finishes, for example, where you can get the blue gems, not blue gems, the sapphires and the rubies, which are very expensive. The tiger tooths are one of the most liquid knives, basically. So yeah, this is my explanation behind them. They are still very cheap to get, and they contain Doppler knives. That's the only reason they are almost perfect. If they were under €1, I would put them into Giga tier. Clutch case could also be taken here, but I'm going to explain that as well. So the Giga tier. Well, there's one undebatable, in my opinion, candidate for it. It's the gallery case. It doesn't really have a very high supply, I think. People like the case. It's not the most desired case, of course, but it is completely discontinued. You can't get it dropped. Of course, if Valve ever changes that, they might as well depreciate in price. But yeah, realistically, I don't know why they should put it if they already discontinued it. Now, the Snakebite case and the Fracture case are kind of special because the Snakebite case already has a high unboxing ROI. I'm going to show you here. It had also the biggest return. It was my biggest or best play. They have very popular gloves. Those gloves are very popular. And of course, the AK Slate is in it. So, and it's still at 57 cents. So I'm not going to shill it much. As I said, it's not financial advice, any of this. but that's my reasoning behind it. And the same for fracture, because it's still going for 54 cents, so not entirely expensive. And the knives are also kind of popular, but it has it as a print stream as well, which is a very popular skin. But all of the other skins are not very popular. But yeah, there is the Nomad knife in it, which is very liked. The skeleton knife, which is undebatably the most popular knife in this case, and it's still very cheap to get. As I said, it's yeah, for me almost or maybe it's Giga tier, I think. Of course, that's kind of a funny name, but yeah. So this is my tier list, guys. So for everyone who actually watched till the end, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. So maybe you have any ideas that I can cover in my videos. Just let me know in the comments. I also have a lot of ideas, but maybe there's something you want to know. So yeah, thank you for watching and see ya.